into luxury or how to differentiate yourself in the luxury market, then you are absolutely listening to the right episode. Today's guest, he's out of Miami Beach, Florida. He deals with luxury all day long. He's got some great insight for us as to what's happening in luxury, as well as helping you succeed in the luxury market. Stay with us. All right, welcome back to the Think Bigger Real Estate Show. I'm your host, Justin Stoddard. Thrilled today to have to be with a brother from another mother. He's from Brazil, folks. For those that know me well, know that I spent 2 years of my life in Brazil. Absolutely love the Brazilian people. Maybe, just maybe, we might throw out a little Portuguese for those that are that are tuning in. Excited to introduce today's guest. Before I give you his full name, he has 22 years of experience in the real estate space, 15 of those in luxury. He's out of one of the hot spots for all luxury real estate, again, out of Miami Beach, Florida. He's the founder and owner of BRG International, and a firm that deals with luxury as well as some other things. Excited to have Matias Alem on the Think Bigger Real Estate Show today. Matias, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Justin. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, what a fun connection, right? The fact that I lived in your country for 2 years, obviously fell in love with the Brazilian people, have a deep respect for you all, and thrilled to now be able to talk about something that we both have in common beyond just Brazil. So again, pleasure to have you here.
Yes, awesome to be here. I love Brazil too, but I've been here in the U.S. for 23 years actually, and I also love the U.S., so I love both countries. So we're in a good space.
I love it. Now, you came here originally for architectural school, right? Studied architecture. At what point did you realize, at the University of Miami, that it's like, I don't necessarily want to design buildings. I want to sell buildings. Like, how did that come to be?
Well, actually, let me explain a little bit better. It's the other way around. My first job, I actually got my real estate license. I was 19. And then I worked in real estate for 2 years. And then I decided, well, I want to learn more about this. So I want to get into architecture. So I got into architecture school. I worked throughout the time that I was in school. So I always worked with real estate and architecture. Even when I, was in school, I was already doing projects, residential projects. And when I graduated architecture school, it was actually August 2008. So you can imagine how the market was at that time.
Yeah, lovely time to be in real estate, right?
So yeah, there's no real estate to be done in August 2008 or architecture, because nobody wanted to build anything. So I started going to Brazil at that time to try to find development projects, to do a development project in Brazil. And I put a piece of property under contract. It was actually a farm, and I was going to do a master plan community. But I didn't have money, so I went looking for investors in Brazil. And it took me a while because I was going back and forth from Miami to Brazil to get the investors. I ended up meeting a lot of investors, and my time ran out with the option to buy the property. So the owner did not want to renew my option. He ended up selling the property for twice as much a week later. And, that got me thinking, look, I'm in Miami, one of the best places in the world. I mean, I'm suspicious to talk about that because I live here, but I love it. And the real estate was depressed. And because I was going back and forth to Brazil, I noticed that the real was very valued and the dollar was devalued. So a light bulb came up and said, look, why don't I focus in Miami, where I have control of the real estate, the properties, control of the situation. And I go to Brazil to offer these properties to Brazilians. So that's how I actually got my company started, with the luxury real estate. Because I was just a one-man show, I did not have, a lot of agents at the time. Now we have 28 agents, but at the time I didn't have any agents. So I said, I need to have the highest price property, the luxury property. So it's just one person. So I can make enough income to keep going. So I basically went to the Bal Harbour. I don't know if you know Miami. Do you know Miami, Justin?
I don't.
Okay, so Bal Harbor is one of the nicest neighborhoods in Miami, one of the most luxurious neighborhoods, and they were building a St. Regis. You know the St. Regis brand?
Hmm. I do.
It's a hotel in New York. So they opened up a condo hotel in Miami, Bal Harbor, which is the nicest neighborhood. Is right in front of one of the nicest shopping centers in the country, which is Bal Harbor Shops. So that building was beautiful location, extremely high end, but everybody was defaulting, nobody was buying, so there was a bunch of properties available to sell. I go up to the sales manager and say, look, I've met a lot of investors in Brazil. I think these people might be interested in buying this building. Can you help me, with the materials, presentation for me to take the building to Brazil and present to people there? And they agreed. So I went out to Brazil and I did presentations. I would do 40-minute presentations on how that moment in time was unique, where the property prices were depressed as well as the price of the dollar. It never happened where both of them were so low at the same time. And for Brazilians, which the economy was doing good at the time, was a golden opportunity. So I was able to influence a lot of people. I actually got picked up by the media there, and I was in the cover of Valor Econômico, which is like a Wall Street Journal of the U.S. And ended up getting a lot of clients and selling a lot of property in the St. Regis. But because I have the architectural background and I already had experience building properties, I ended up, these people would ask me, "Oh, can you design my place? Can you build it?" So I ended up doing like an ecosystem where I would sell the property, I would design the project, I would build it for them, and then they would need me to take care of it. So I'll open up a property management company that would handle the property while they were away. Some people would want to rent it, so we would rent the property. So basically, that's how we set up for BRG. Beyond Realty Group. We do these different services for our clients, and we were able to take market share in a moment where the economy was people didn't have a market at the time. So that's how I was able to establish myself in the luxury market basically.
And I think it's a really interesting lesson for everybody that's listening here, that one way to really thrive in the real estate market, right? Let me back up and say one way to not thrive is to be like everybody else. One way to thrive when you're dealing with people who are wealthy people most oftentimes don't become wealthy by being dumb, right? They get there because they're smart business people. And I've seen some of the finest luxury agents that I know who aren't just marketing properties, they're putting deals together. They're looking for deals. And that sounds like exactly what you were doing as you became a student of the deal, student of what's the economy doing now? Where's the real opportunity to gain wealth while everyone else is losing wealth, right? And I think, our economy is doing some interesting things. The housing market's doing some interesting things. It'll be interesting to see what happens here over the next few months and, several years to see what happens with the housing market. I know nobody's predicting that I've heard seriously that there's going to be some sort of massive bubble like there was in 2008. But everybody that I do know does believe that housing appreciation is going to start to slow down and could potentially even go down just a little bit. I think, again, just a great reminder for everybody that, again, wants to get into luxury is become a student of even potentially what economies are doing well when your local economy is not. That may be a great way to step in and have buyers ready to purchase properties. You're able to put deals together, helping people to create massive wealth while helping other people to get out of a bad situation. So good on you for taking advantage of that, seeing the opportunity based on people where you were at, based on where you were currently living at the time. Well done.
Thank you.
Talk to us a little bit about, so that's one way to get into the real estate market. Okay. Let's say that you're in and you're established. What other tips do you have for people that are, selling some luxury property, maybe even a lot of luxury property, but they want to continue to differentiate. They want to stand out from everybody else. What's something that you're teaching your 28 agents to help them stand out in a very crowded marketplace?
Okay. So, as you mentioned, the buyer and seller in the high-end market, they're very sophisticated people, right? So they're looking for people that are giving them intelligent advice, right? So the service section of providing the highest quality service for your client means that knowing your stuff. You got to understand the market. This is the usual speech, I guess, of knowing your market, knowing your property, knowing not only that, but the history, what has been happening to that property, specific property, or the specific building or neighborhood throughout time. I always tell my agents, the first thing when they join, like the first thing you got to do is learn. Right? There's nothing else besides learning that's going to get you to do the bigger deals, because it happened to me. Whenever the clients came to me and I was just starting in the luxury market, they would ask me 1,000 questions. Okay, so why buy here? Why not buy there? What happened to this building? What do you think is going to happen in the future? I mean, they want to know all this. Otherwise, they could just go buy it themselves. If you're not adding any value to them, I mean, why are you there for? So as a buyer's agent, you got to know the stuff. You got to know the entire, all the moving variables, moving parts of the deal. As far as sellers goes, obviously sellers, they want the highest price they can get for a property. So when you're representing a seller, you need to have, extremely good representation. So they need to see that you are going to represent their luxury property at a level that's going to reflect the price you're asking for them. And obviously, everybody has to be honest with each other. A lot of sellers, they want to ask for more than it's worth, but being that everything is aligned, the pricing is aligned in the market, so you have to be able to not only present the property the best way possible, but also to communicate that to as many likely agents to have a client as possible. You see a lot of people that they want to be in the the luxury space, and then they take picture of $10 million properties with their iPhone. That's not the way to do it. You have to to do things in a professional way, and you have to convey that to your seller. So it's a very different let's say speech for the buyer or the seller. And they want different things, but in the end of the day, they want your service. They want count on a professional that knows what they're doing and understands the market. So I think professionalism, knowing your stuff, and going the extra mile, doing the effort that your buyer or seller can see that you're doing it, you're going to be fine. You're going to take the job, you're going to get the project, the property, and you're going to do it.
Yeah, I think when realtor margins get squeezed or realtors get squeezed out altogether is when they simply show up as a functionary to simply open a door, write a contract. But when you can add unique value in the form of unique knowledge that other people don't have, that's where you begin to differentiate yourself, and people realize the value in having you a part of the transaction far exceeds what it costs to have you in the transaction. If you could teach us, Matias, what are the kind of key things that you have your agents learn? You said gain knowledge. You talked about the history. You talked about kind of what's happening in the area, what's expected to happen in the area. Are there certain market metrics that the luxury buyer or seller really is interested in more than others? I mean, there's so many to focus on. What are your favorite kind of key market indicators that you watch most closely?
You're talking about on a neighborhood basis or a building? Yeah. So actually what we do, and the sellers, they love this, we put together market reports. A lot of brokerages, they put out market reports, right? But we go a little bit beyond that, and we localize our market reports. So for example, I just brought one here for you to have an example. Your viewers can see what we do. So we put out these market reports, and they're localized per neighborhood. So this is the neighborhood that I was talking to you about, Bal Harbour and Surfside, which are right next to each other. And we make them in a very high end look, so they can look and feel that this is the type of property we work with. And then we localize even further by building. So like, for example, this building, you can see what happened within the next quarter, that it went up, 21% on the sold prices. So as far as information goes to the sellers, for example, and the buyers, they want to know what's happening, on a timely basis, So sometimes this gets delayed because of supply chain issues. The paper didn't arrive on time, whatever it is, and then we get owners, the homeowners, they call the office and say, "Look, I didn't get my market report. Can you please make sure I get it? This is my address." So when you're asking, when you have clients calling you, asking you, "Hey, please keep me in the loop," that means you're providing them with the right information that they're relying on. So this is a way to differentiate, and this can be done anywhere in the U.S., in the world, for that matter. So they all have high-end neighborhoods that you can work with.
I love it. I love it. Now, you guys in Miami right now have a lot of people moving into your market, right? Out of the Northeast, out of different places. Some of that is a political migration. Some of it is just people escaping the cold, right?
Yeah.
Kind of really wanting to go for a warmer climate as our demographics of the U.S. Start to age. There's a lot of people that want to escape those hard, cold winters. What's some strategies that you've found, Matias, to really almost create supply where others can't see it, right? That's one of the biggest things that we find is that there's plenty of demand, there's plenty of buyers, but finding sellers is can be tricky. You guys have some creative strategies around that, don't you? As far as helping to almost create new space that other people didn't see. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Right. Yeah. So because we have the architecture and construction arm, so we are able to help buyers buy property that they probably would not look at otherwise, right? Because we give such an ease of them being able to buy. For example, we had a client that wanted a beautiful brand new waterfront home, but at that time, waterfront homes were like $30 million to buy a waterfront home to the level that they wanted. So they ended up buying a lot for $6 million. We're currently approving a project for them, and they're probably going to spend another $6 or $7 million to build a house. So, with $12, $13 million, they're going to have a $25 million house, that, of course, they're going to have to wait a little longer to get it finished and built. But, at the same time, they're saving a lot of money and they're enjoying the process and they're customizing the home to the way they want it, as opposed to just buying something that's, somebody else's decisions. We also do that with the condos. The condos, it's much easier actually, because the condo, you just need an interior renovation. We might come in and look at a condo that's not, maybe it's an old condo, and we can even customize it to a 2 or 3 bedroom. Maybe it's a 2-bedroom, we can make it into a 3-bedroom, or open up the condo a lot more. Or even sometimes clients, they just want to create instant equity and then just resell the property for more money. So as far as our brokerage is concerned, we have that ability to provide these additional services because of my background of architecture and construction, high-end architecture and construction. So we can produce these, the inventory that didn't exist,
That's awesome.
They don't have access to it.
I love it. I think people are going to want to know, anybody that's moving to Miami, like, yeah, that's a problem, right? That I can't find property. Let's do it before I forget. Let's get your website for anybody that wants to invest in Miami property or wants to move there, right? Let's BRG. In fact, I'll put it in the comments here, the website for anybody that's looking to go that way, looking to find somebody who can help you create, market that supply that isn't there. So great stuff. Love it. Let's talk really quickly about kind of buying in Miami. Like, what advice do you have? And just, in fact, kind of 2 questions built into each other. Like, what are you seeing with the Miami real estate market right now? Obviously in 2008, it was hot, and then it went stone cold, right? It dropped to the floor. What are you seeing with Miami real estate right now? What are the opportunities? And then even if you could talk kind of more globally when it comes to, not internationally necessarily, but just luxury in general. What input do you have? What are you seeing economically that might be an opportunity for whether it be buyers or sellers?
Okay, so Miami has gone through a fundamental change as far as the city goes. It's a pretty young city in the United States. If you compare it to other major cities like New York, LA. So what happened to Miami is originally, historically has been a second home location where people would come either to retire or to buy a second home, a condo, a house, to use it during vacation, during the season, right? And then, as you mentioned, there has been a migration of the Northeasterners, people moving for tax reasons or political reasons, moving to South Florida. And that had happened, from a while back, and it was slow moving. But then COVID accelerated that, especially because of we didn't have as much restrictions as the rest of the country during COVID. So that was, accelerated. And what that made was, a market that was originally a second home market has become a first home market. And what people are willing to pay on a second home is much different to what they're willing to pay for their primary home.
Interesting.
So that has shifted the market. So with that, I believe that there's still plenty of opportunities here in South Florida. I mean, there's much less inventory, right? But the advantage of Miami is that during the season, people do travel like out of Miami during the summer months. Usually people are not here. And when they're very wealthy on the luxury market, for example, even more so because they tend to go to the Hamptons or to Europe, or they're not really chained to anywhere. So it becomes much easier to do deals during the summer. So like right now, if you come July, August to Miami, you'd be able to find property, you'd be able to buy property much easier than you would if you were to come here during the season. December, January, February, it becomes crazy because you have a lot more people here than you have properties. So I think that on the basis of, if you compare the price per square foot of Miami, I mean, obviously there's things that the pricing is already high, but there's a lot of product here. There's a lot of properties that, if you compare the pricing per square foot of premium oceanfront properties here compared to maybe, in front of Central Park property in New York City or in London or in Paris, it's still a lot cheaper. Mm-hmm. You can still sell your property in New York looking at the dumpster and buy for much less a property here looking at beautiful ocean. So I think we're still a value proposition to a lot of people, luxury, buyers from all over the world. And if you look at also the inflation, you mentioned in the beginning, inflation, a lot of these properties have not been adjusted. To replace a lot of the buildings today, it would cost a lot more than it did when they built it. So the pricing has not been, adjusted yet. So I think that even though everything has increased tremendously, we did suffer a little bit of a downturn in 2018-19 in Miami because of the trade wars that were happening in China. The dollar got extremely strong, and we had a lot of foreign nationals, especially the Brazilians. They stopped buying, and they were trying to sell their properties. So we were in a downturn in Miami as a localized market, and then we came out of it. So we're coming out of it, So I think still a lot of opportunity down here for people to buy. Good locations, good buildings, good property.
Yeah. I think you've opened everybody's eyes, Matias, to, and I teach this a lot inside my book, The Upstream Model. There it is on that side. And just how to differentiate in this market is that oftentimes when we don't differentiate, we're simply trying to build a better mousetrap, right? We're trying to say, how can I list the property more competitively? How can I market better? When you can say, okay, here is the silo of work that is expected of a real estate agent. And then you can say, okay, what are the concerns that a client has prior to this? And what are the concerns that a client has after this? And you start to almost add those, the resolution of those concerns into your value proposition. Like, for example, I can't find property, right? Okay, then we're going to help you find property that can be built, right? And then, once they get in, having the construction ability to be able to help people improve a property. Right? I think that's how we all need to be thinking, is that, if there seems like there's too much competition, then you just need to change your value proposition to potentially include other concerns that that client has. Well, as you start to do that, people choose you, not necessarily because you're the better price or because you're faster, but because you're taking care of more of their concerns by them choosing you. And I love what you've done with that, Matias. It makes total sense why you guys are, really building a great brand in, a competitive real estate space. I think it's something we can all learn from.
Thank you. And, just to make it easier for, some of the agents out there, they might not have an architectural degree, but, if a buyer comes in, in a place where there's no inventory, if you're the agent that you're knocking on everybody's door and you know all the sellers, you know all the owners, and you constant contact to them, I mean, you're going to have a lot more value to the buyer. You know what I mean? So you can do, there's lots of things that you can do that you can add value to your client. And you should just be looking at that. Like, how can I do it?
Yeah, I love it. And I think creative partnerships as well, right? One of the things I talk about in my book is, the power of creating upstream partnerships. Anytime you can take a look at other professionals that are dealing with your client first, right, before you get there, those are great people to bring in. And that couples very nicely with what I just talked about when it comes to adding more value to your value proposition. Doesn't mean that you have to own the firm or, as you mentioned, Matias, have a degree in architecture, but right. You can find someone who does, right? Add big value to them. And through that partnership, doesn't even have to be a formal partnership, right? It can just be kind of an arranged referral arrangement to where your value propositions are somewhat integrated. You can cover a lot of ground and really differentiate yourself. So I would encourage anybody, if that topic is of interest to you, then join me inside of my Facebook group, Successful Real Estate Agents, where we really go deep on creating strategic referral partnerships, scaling a referral business. Would love to have anybody in there that's listening that's not in there yet. Matias, I want to ask you one more question here that really ties in with the theme of this show, the Think Bigger Real Estate Show. What is it that Matias does to continue to be a big thinker, to continue to expand your possibilities? What does growth for you look like? How do you do it? Teach us.
I think, what I've been talking about, it's what it's pretty simple. It's just learn things in focus. There's two main things that I keep doing. And whenever I go, we're looking actually on opening up offices in other locations, for example, other high-end locations here in Florida. Learning and focusing and being like on point on that, for me has been enough for me to be able to grow my business and grow my clientele and expand to the areas that I've been trying to expand. So whenever I'm trying to do even just running the business, just running the real estate brokerage, I had to learn. So I couldn't run the brokerage on day one. So I had to stop and, had many times where you get discouraged and, you get challenged, and you just gotta, take the initiative to press forward by understanding things and try to understand things and learn things as you go and not lose focus.
É muito bom, muito bom. Muito obrigado por ter visitado-me nesse dia no Think Bigger Real Estate Show. Tem sido grande prazer, grande prazer mesmo.
Muito obrigado, Justin. Foi prazer.
Muito prazer mesmo. All right, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Matias, again, thank you so much for coming on and teaching us so much about the luxury market, how to differentiate. That's such a pleasure. Excited to have you in my network, be able to continue to learn and grow together. And for those that are tuning in today, learning from Matias, please give him a shout out, say thanks in the comments. Be sure that he knows that we appreciate his time. And my final requests of everybody listening here today are 3 simple words, and they are go think bigger. Matias, thanks for helping us do that today, my friend.
Thank you, my friend. I really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.